This is Netready, the channel aimed at the decision maker and focused on the multi-level marketing industry. In this session, Richard Sletcher interviews Matt Schaal, a German by birth but South African by heart. Matt has a master's degree in business management and strategy, but not only has Matt worked in both consulting and strategic roles over the past 2 decades, but he has also built his very own business, focused around commercial strategy and optimization. For this interview, we identify the immense value that Matt can bring to your business.
Well, Matt, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Richard.
No, before we get started, I'd just like to find out a little bit about your background, where you come from, what you've been doing, sort of your history, your bona fides, etc.
Yeah, so as you might have gathered, my accent is German. I grew up in a small little farmer's town in the Black Forest. So it was
Okay, down the south.
Yeah, in
What is it called?
Baden-Württemberg, close to between Stuttgart and Karlsruhe, so where all the Mercs and the Porsches come from. No?
Oh.
But a beautiful little piece of earth. But eventually, I thought, well, there must be more to life, and then stretched out my feelers. I studied at the border to Switzerland in a town called Constance.
Okay.
And from there on, decided, it's time to explore the world a bit more. And I lived in Switzerland for a while. While I was doing my studies, I was doing exchange semesters in Finland. So I was in a country where the language is very, very hard to comprehend. Finland's very tricky.
Can you speak?
I cannot. I tried to buy butter 4 times and bought different things because I just couldn't read it. So unfortunately, all the other Scandinavian countries have a very Germanic language. Finnish is very different. But after that, I came to South Africa first. I did an exchange semester with UCT with the graduate program in business. And then had to go back to Europe because I had to finish my master's degree in business management and strategy. And after that, went to London and was there for about a year. I worked for SAP Computer Systems to gain some insights into, first of all, large ERP systems, because I was always interested in consulting. I was head of the consulting company that was founded in collaboration with the university in Constance. So I was the head there. We had projects staffed both with professional consultants and with students, which gave a very good mix of learning people, but highly motivated, very clever people, but also then high quality outcomes with professional consultants involved. So it was a good business model.
Using serious software.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. And then at SAP, I also looked into, I was part of the finance team there to gain knowledge in corporate finance, which was also very interesting and obviously helping to understand how businesses have to set themselves up for success. And then in 2008, I decided my little small flat in London is not quite as appealing as coming back to Cape Town. And not the least of it, my wife, my now wife, was my girlfriend back then that I had met in 2006 when I first came here. So it was an easy decision to come down to South Africa.
So you're married to a South African?
I'm married to a South African, yes.
Okay,
and,
well done.
Yeah, thanks. Well, yeah. So I'm really enjoying it here. And one of the main reasons for me to come down was, firstly, it is lovely to be here. But secondly, the opportunity that I saw. So obviously with many consulting projects in Europe, I also saw that there is such a plethora of people out there, and that every single niche is basically taken already, and there's 500 other people that could take that niche in a heartbeat. When I was here, while I was doing my exchange semester, I specifically looked to get involved and get my hands dirty with business. So while I was doing my studies at UCT, I was part of Cape Venture Partners, which is a venture capital company, and I helped 2 clients build their strategy from the ground up. So it was very early stage strategy, but all with the intention to grow the business very quickly and very efficiently, to obviously, first of all, gain value in the company, but secondly of all, get good exit paths for the venture capital company, which was very interesting. And what I saw is the immense opportunity in this country, and that always brought me back to South Africa. Even before 2008, I said I have to go back. It's unbelievable there, what you can do, and it proved me right. I joined a boutique strategy consultancy called Phoenix Strategy Partners, PSP Icon. And there we focused on strategy projects to delivery. So what's usually happening, what is kind of like common with big consulting companies, and that is, I think, where the name consulting gets a little bit of a bad rep, is large builds, lots and lots of work, and in the end you get a report this big. And what we've done is we focused very much around kind of like efficient projects. You have a report, but it's all about actions, and it's all about actionable outcomes. And we stuck around for the implementation of that. And that was the what I really liked about that business. And I was involved there on large projects for Brand House, the joint venture between Diageo and Heineken. And I was there initially for a 3-month project, and was eventually there for 3 years. Before they offered me many jobs along the way, but eventually, like, they offered me a job that was good enough for me to say, like, I'll jump the fence. And I was with Diageo for 8 years in total.
What did Diageo do?
So Diageo is the brand that owns Johnny Walker, Smirnoff. Like, it's a global player in spirits. It's actually, I think it's the third biggest spirits, or third biggest alcoholic beverage company in the world. And down here they had this joint venture with Heineken. So when I joined, I was in the corporate strategy team. I then, because of my previous conviction that, like, we have to see it out to implementation, it is important that we can take a high-level strategy that says, like, we want to achieve this as a business, to elements that I can give to a salesperson on the ground and they understand it. Because this piece is very, very lofty and very kind of like big and fluffy, while what do I tell a salesperson on a day-to-day basis? What can I give him in his hand to say, like, if you do this, you will achieve that, and we as a business will achieve what's up here. And this kind of draw through strategy implementation path, that is what I always enjoyed, and that is why I requested to be transferred into the commercial strategy department, where I've done exactly that for about like 3 years. Before I moved into a little bit more of a day-to-day role, where I managed a large team in the consumer planning and activation field. So that was very much around understanding consumer needs, structuring the business setup and business promotions and business activity to cater to those consumer needs in the retail outlets, but then also further than that, like into other streams of sales, whether that was online, whether that was through distribution agreements, and whether that was through kind of like optimization around these various retail streams that we had as a business. And then it came the time when the company split up. So Heineken and Diageo had a long marriage, but eventually, unfortunately, not as happy in the end, and they split up. And I worked for the MD to demerge the two companies. We were a team of 4. And then afterwards built the commercial business for Diageo in Joburg for them. We built an organization of 1,000 people in about 6 months' time, and set it all up to work from Johannesburg, where the company relocated to. And then thereafter, after the project was finished, I was happy to go on a nice sabbatical and enjoy my time. It turned out to be a 1-day sabbatical, because immediately I went across to Devil's Peak Craft Brewery, which is now the most successful craft brewery in South Africa. At the time, they had just received funding to build a nice big brewery, and then to expand their operations, and with the goal to become, firstly, the most successful craft brewery, but secondly, to break into the premium craft beer space, which is this glass ceiling that craft usually can't eclipse. And I was employed there as commercial director, and did exactly that again. So like, it was strategic projects to reshape the company, to make sure we build a sales force that is capable of achieving those goals, and working down the individual goals for the salespeople to achieve a greater goal that we had as a company.
Now, the question I have is, did they do so well because as a German you were using the product more than you should have, which increased their sales considerably?
I had my own line item for sure, yeah. But as a German, I'm immune to beer, so yeah, I certainly had my own line item there. Like, but that's a small benefit, but also the downside. Yeah, I'm about like 4 kilos lighter than in those times. Yeah.
Yeah. But obviously, really nice projects to have worked on. Now, in terms of those projects, did you find yourself getting involved in the online space at all there?
Yeah, so like we did a lot in the online space. At the time, before Devil's Peak even, e-commerce and online channel retail was just about on the up. It was, I think, very much untouched in South Africa. What we saw as an opportunity, we obviously, like in the alcohol space, had a very kind of like retail focused and direct in on-trade businesses focused approach. What we didn't have was a very efficient way to speak to consumers, because if you sell to a bar owner and the bar owner sells a beer, you have no idea who you're talking to in terms of consumer.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely no idea. Yeah, and that was always a bit of our challenge, understanding like, well, who are these people? What do they actually want? Did they like the beer? Did they not like the beer? Was it 7 people who drank 1 beer, or was it 1 person who drank 7 beers? And what is the insight here? So what we've done is like we've created an online sales channel, and we've created a customer retention methods. Yeah? So we had limited edition beers, and we only pushed those out to specific customers that were obviously registered with us and that we actually had information on, and we made relevant offerings to them. That was sort of like the starting point, of really figuring out, hang on a second, like what we've got here is actually like not a sales channel for this. It is one, but that's almost like a side product. What we do have is like now an ever increasing, call it like buzzwordy big data point of who are my consumers, what are they enjoying, and how can I shape
what are their behaviors?
Yeah, how can I shape my my products? How can I A/B test? How can I better my communication to them? What works, what doesn't work? And then we take this and we bring it to the large retail business side. And that improved margins specifically. It improved consumer uptake. It improved certainly our media attention, our social media attention. And in those days, I mean, like it was just like a exponential curve of like how our social channels grew, and with that, the engagement that we managed to achieve with consumers.
Now, something that you said now really caught my attention, and that is that you were selling your products to the bar owners. The bar owners were selling it to the customers, and you were not connected with the customers. Now, in the space we're operating in, the MLM space, we have the same problem.
Similar.
The agent comes and purchases the product. They then go out and sell to their customers. We don't know what the behavior patterns of those customers. We don't know who they are. We know nothing about them. And so it's very difficult to have that relationship with them. So one of the big things that we're trying to do on our side is to say, hey, Mr. Agent, register your customers with us, because then what we're going to do is we're going to bring somebody like Matt in, who's going to help the company to market to those customers on their behalf.
Yeah.
They are still going to earn their 20% or whatever, but what we're doing is we're using the agent there not only as a sales channel, but also as a customer acquisition channel. So the idea would be then to, I presume, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but to analyze that company's customer base, analyze their product offering, and then show them how to really leverage their products and that customer relationship to improve their sales.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I think firstly from the onset is, if you start a business these days and you just get a website and a sales channel onto it, like the amount of time and effort and money that you have to spend to get to a level where your database is meaningful enough, like let's say even like only 500 people, and to analyze any trends in this. If you have 10 people, like you don't know if a trend is really true or not. It takes an immense amount of effort, an immense amount of time to get to this space. So I'm astonished in a positive way to see obviously like the power of the business setup like that your clients have, where in a very, very quick way, you have a consumer base that is in the thousands, maybe in the 100,000s, And with the software backbone that you can offer here, at the click of a beat, you have data that is so big and so meaningful. Obviously, also like you need to go through it, so like there's work involved in this. But just the sheer breadth of the data that you have in a short amount of time is fascinating, and exactly as you say. So. Having this data so readily and so quickly available, knowing exactly what that person bought and in what intervals they bought it, it's fantastic. Because now you can really like build up routines, build up reports, standardized reports, build up routines by which you skim the data, and then actually figure out, well, what do I want to extract from this? This differs business by business, this differs product by product, but it's easy for you now to say like, well, let me get those insights and let me review what I want to get out of this on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, and then get those insights. And then you consolidate it, and you have a pretty clear action path of like maybe what hasn't been clear to you before. So you might have thought like there's one product I must punt and punt and punt. Meanwhile, the data shows you actually you should also talk about this product. You should talk about this occasion. You should talk about someone who has purchased this product before. Why doesn't he want this product? And all of a sudden you get real sales. Not just like someone saying like, oh yeah, this is nice, but actually real sales.
And I presume what you can look at is bubble charts to see, okay, we're selling less of this product, but it's a high value product, it's a high profit product, or we're selling too much of that product, which is a low profit product, and to analyze that and then make decisions on which products you want to push on. But I'm sure that there's strategies beyond that. For example, do you get involved in helping the client choose what other products they could develop that would fit into those molds and things like that?
Certainly, for sure, yeah. So like the part that was missing earlier was obviously after Devil Speak, it was like had another job with BioOil, where I was a global director, BioOil, the skincare product, which is a very successful one. And then after that, I started my own consulting business because these are the challenges that I enjoy. And I specifically focus around this commercial route to market and commercial value chain consulting. Yeah. And that is exactly to your point. This data and helping clients to actually understand where should you be playing, what business are you in? This is a question I like to ask. What business are you in? Because often people say, oh well, I'm in the business of selling this and selling that, but you need to draw it one level higher. What business are you in? You really need to think about like, what do you want to achieve? What is the one sentence on your wall in your CEO's office that can sense check every decision that you make? And understanding that helps you understanding firstly like the products that you should offer, secondly how you should offer them, and then thirdly every strategic decision that you have to make along this road can be sense checked against that as well. And to your point, you look at the data, you understand what's currently happening, you look at what you've said, the business that you're in and the business that you want to be, is there congruency? If there's congruency, fantastic. We can move to the next step and figure out what do we do next. If there's not, we need to align these because otherwise you're constantly pulling in one direction versus your product's pulling in the other direction.
I'm with you.
So once you have that, then you look at, okay, cool, I've got a steady base. This is working, this is not working. I can grow here. There's a massive opportunity. That's fine. But what's beyond that? You know, what fits in with my strategic intent that I can at great margin and at great benefit to me, extend my ranges on, extend my product ideas on, extend the way I'm communicating to consumers, the way I'm selling it, the way I'm helping my agents, you know. So absolutely. So like those elements all come into play.
Now, I mentioned to you before we came on air that on average, a MLM company has got about 30,000 agents.
That's fantastic.
And you can probably count, I mean, realistically, on each agent having about 10 customers on average. I mean, sometimes it goes up to as much as 100 customers. But let's say we just had 10 customers. That means you've got 30,000 agents plus 300,000 customers. Now, my first question to you, if you had a database with 300,000 customers who'd at least purchased once from you, where there was a trust relationship because that order had been fulfilled on, and where the product was of such a nature that they'd got some value out of it, what would your approach be to that customer base?
Yeah, so first of all, you would have to clean the customer base. So like this is in every kind of like data analysis, someone who would tell you, I'm going to come in and going to tell you in a days, they're probably lying. So databases have to be cleaned. You would look at that, you would look at outliers, but very quickly you would get to a solid database that has insight points. You would then structure it, you would then sit with a client, and you would understand, what do you want out of this data? What do you want to understand? What is your goal? Do you want to sell more? Do you want to sell better? Do you want to sell higher margin products? What do you want to do? And we would then throw those questions back at the database. And we would look into those databases in terms of extracting historic trends. We would look at like what is currently the reality, and we would then look at, well, based on what you are telling me, what you want to do, these are the trends that I can extrapolate, and like these are the types of consumers, these are the groups of consumers, these are the regions, because now obviously we've also got regional data on this, where this could work, and we will then work out together a strategy on how we would approach this, and how we actually implement and how we figure out how to bring this to reality.
And would you bring that right down to granular action plans? For example, this is the verbiage we're going to use to communicate with this client about this product. Do you take it down to that depth?
Yeah, that can absolutely be done. Yeah, so it's a stepped approach where you, similar to the strategy, you figure out what is the high level information that you want to convey. How do you break that down? Then you have filters that vary probably by any of your clients. Who do you want to talk to about this? And then you break it down into exactly those points. You're like, these are the buzzwords that you need to use. These are the hashtags you need to use. This is what you need to convey in the most concise and precise way that you can only do that.
And do you incorporate like social media advertising, like Facebook advertising and all of that? Do you incorporate that into your strategy, or is it purely an email, an SMS push?
So from it's obviously it varies by client, and it's very important to also understand how is the company structured behind that? Because now when you go into Facebook advertising and into Instagram advertising, all those things, that's good and fine. And you can even like reach out into influencer advertising in that. But I think what we need to keep in mind is you can do that for the broader good of the brand. What you also want to achieve, you want to have a second layer, and that is a very careful way, and that needs to be figured out by client by client. How do you tie it back into your agents? Because obviously, like, you're not just a website where people can go on and buy. You want to make sure your network of people is working well. So if you advertise on Facebook, ideally the person that sees and says like, hey, I want to buy this, gets linked straight back to that agent that is relevant to them, or at least has a way of figuring out who can I speak to about this product and get it.
And then purchase it through the...
Correct.
Another question I just want to put to you. You've got, if you had a company with 300,000 customers, would you consider that a substantial customer base, or is that a fairly small customer base? What would you say?
It entirely depends on what product you are selling. Yeah, but in any case, 300,000 customers is a very, very good starting point. Yeah, so I would consider it, no matter what, a very substantial base. Yeah.
So that is a key issue within our industry, is that one of the communication points we want to push is that our customers, who are the companies that are adopting our systems, that they understand that the number one thing that they can get their agent to do, the number one thing is to get their customers to register. And if you've got 30,000 agents and each of them can register 100 customers, which is not a lot, 100 customers, nothing. No. But that gives you a customer base of 3 million customers.
It's fantastic, yeah.
You know, and if you had 3 million customers to speak to, I have to believe that you would have to practice to fail at that.
Well, and also, I mean, you need to look at it from a level of the agents themselves. The agent themselves can only be in one place at one time. Now you have a tool at your hand where, yes, you can still see your couple of customers every day, be it 10 or be it 1, like whatever it is. But at night, you can go online and you can speak to every customer and you can keep in touch with them. In a reasonable level, of course, but that's very, very powerful. And a network that can speak to 3 million customers, if they wanted to on a daily basis, it's unheard of.
Really?
Well, you can do it on Facebook, but I mean, you know, like how people scroll through Facebook, like an efficient communication and a tool and like a way of like really having meaningful communication to your consumers is fantastic.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've been doing we've got a very powerful emailing system. So we'll email our clients, tell them about a special offer. Now, I have to just say, we're not experts at retail. We don't understand what the customers, we're not analyzing the customer's needs or any of that kind of stuff. So what we're doing is very high level, and I would say almost pathetic in its approach. But we will email a client and say, hey, we see that you bought this set of glasses, and we've got this beautiful set of this tea set, which goes perfectly with those glasses. Here's a 10% coupon. Why don't you come along and purchase it from us? And so we are using that same concept. Now, my ideas here is to take that to a much more granular level, have a much more in-depth understanding of what that customer base does, and actually talk to them directly, but in a very intelligent and an effective way. So the question is that kind of where you would fit into this whole play?
I think so, absolutely, because you would look at those databases, and as you said, like currently you're kind of like looking at it from a high level. You send this person who bought the tea set, like you send them, well, don't you want to buy the tea or whatever it may be, yeah? But what you could do is you could figure out a strategy. How can you systemize this? So like, how do you actually analyze data, and like, where is repeat purchase, where is purchase of individual projects, and it then automatically could spit out some of these findings, whether that be software based or how this works. Like that would have to be figured out client by client. But like, then you can figure out, well, how can I systemize it? How can I set up the communication behind that, and how can I distribute that to my consumers?
So the idea behind this particular conversation is to introduce you to our customers, because what we would like to do is encourage them to utilize your services and to get you into a room with them to show them how they can leverage this client base that is just sitting there waiting to be, not let me use the word exploited, but basically you've got this incredible customer base who knows, likes, and trusts you, where you've formed a relationship, you've sold them at least one item, you've delivered on that item, and to try and take that and turn that into a long-term client. I mean, I know for myself, if I want to buy something, I go onto Amazon, there's a relationship there. I know I'm going to get delivery of that product. So I go onto Amazon, I look for what I want, I search for it, I buy it, it gets delivered for me. It doesn't enter my head that they won't deliver. It doesn't enter my head that my money
wouldn't.
It wouldn't, exactly. So my thinking is that really to have somebody like you in our corner who can actually sit down with the customers and say, listen, this is how we're going to build that relationship and create a long-term, long-lasting relationship, create an incredible user experience, and make sure that the clients actually come back time and time again. Do you get involved at all in the user experience? Do you kind of focus on that at all?
So I get involved from a level of understanding what are barriers for consumers to actually purchase. And I've certainly done a couple of projects like where we looked at user experience and user interface sort of projects. I'm not a specialist, I'm not a programmer, so like I can't get involved in like actually do it, but like certainly from a strategic point, absolutely, to understand what are barriers to purchase.
And to try and create a slippery process so that you just slide the client
correct
into those
that's
cells.
absolutely it. I think to your earlier point, it's strategy is a word that gets thrown around as like kind of like, well, let's get a strategy, let's Google a strategy, and like then people Google and like, okay, like this is what I must do, yeah. And it's unfortunately not quite like that. So it's unfortunately like you have to really understand the business and you have to really work it through. So it's not a quick process. I think what's really beneficial is like with the software backbone that you have, you already kind of like shortcutting a lot of this process because like most of the time, just to get to that point where you actually get that information portal, where you actually get to that will take you months and months and months. So if that's already out of the way, we can really focus on the pertinent questions of like, what does your business want to achieve and how do we break it down and what do we use then in the system? And on top of it, what can we use in terms of other applications or other software pieces that can plug into this? You know, what draws the data out, what analyzes it, and like then what do you do to make it meaningful?
Now, you've been involved in sort of the retail space and the e-commerce space. The key thing here is if we took MLM out the picture, how does a traditional business go about acquiring customers? If you just have a traditional e-commerce store, what is the process of acquiring those customers for a traditional company?
So there's varying strategies. I think historically what happened is that every company was a retail company, brick and mortar. People woke up to the fact, hang on a second, we have to have a retail outlet. So what they are trying to do is lure the consumers that have bought them historically in a retail outlet back in with interesting strategies, with social media communication, with deals on their website, and so on and so forth. Then you of course get like pure online retail companies that never had a brick and mortar,
Like the yuppie chefs of this world.
exactly, the yuppie chefs, which I've worked with extensively before, and they focus solely on the online experience. And actually, Yuppie Chef is doing it in a great way because they're trying to establish a real consumer relationship. Every parcel has like a little note in it, and those are all strategies like that have been thought through like many times and worked on and really made perfect in terms of I buy it, it arrives on time, I get a nice little greeting in it, it's never wrong, it's always the right color that I've ordered, and if not, they jump over backwards to make it right. So these are the new kind of businesses, and they go about acquiring consumers, certainly through social media channels, but very much through referrals of a great user experience and of a great customer experience. And then you get obviously hybrids that kind of like either come out of the online space or came here, but like are extremely successful. And that extremely successful always has to do with like a very sharp strategy and how to communicate to a lot of people and hopefully recruit many consumers and customers out of it.
And that's done through advertising.
That's done through advertising.
Can
correct.
you give me some idea what a marketing budget for a company like a Yuppie Chef would be?
I would have to guess, but like if you want on a company of that level, it would be certainly in the millions, so somewhere in the tens of millions
per month?
per year.
So probably in the tens of millions per year.
Tens of millions per year. Yeah.
You see, this is where I'm so excited about multi-level marketing, because what happens is I recruit you as an agent.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you pay me to join the company, so you buy the starter kit for 600 Rand or $100 or whatever it is, and inside that there's your brochures and your leaflets and your advertising material, and then we show you how to market on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and you that whole marketing budget gets given to the company. So before we get started, every single agent that I acquire is parting with $100 or whatever. Then traditionally we try and get our agents to also part with a small marketing monthly marketing contribution.
Yeah.
So each agent could say be putting $10 into the pot. Now you get to the same picture, 30,000 agents have each paid you $100. So you made $3 million just there. And then they're each contributing $10 a month in marketing spend. So now suddenly you got a $300,000 a month advertising spend, and the cost to company at this point is zero.
Yeah, no, it's a phenomenal setup.
Now we train those IBOs to go out and acquire customers for us. Each one of them acquires 100 customers because we train them really well. Suddenly you've got 3 million customers, and then somebody with your skill set can come in and say, okay, let's train these agents how to talk to their customers, and let's train the company or put strategies and implement very granular strategies on how to talk to those customers.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, is why we're having such ridiculous stellar growth with our clients at the moment, is because this is just an unprecedented way and an inexpensive way of acquiring. Because how many companies have got $10 million to throw at a...
Not many.
Exactly.
Absolutely not.
And if you want to compete on the space of clients of ours we've got one client started with us in January. They've got nearly 50,000 agents now. Okay? Nearly 50,000 agents. I mean, and I won't tell you their turnover, but it's stellar.
I'm sure it's significant.
And they started with us in January. Now, how many companies without spending any money on advertising, zero money on advertising, can go from 0 to 50,000? Now, again, let's say we got each person to bring on 10 customers. Suddenly you've got 500,000 customers you're talking to. So, this is kind of, for me, why it's so exciting talking to you, is because the opportunity for somebody like you to now take that company who's just leveraged the MLM side of it, and say, okay, you've done that side really, really well. Let me show you how we can take this to the next level by making every one of those customers, locking them in, making them loyal, getting them to purchase from you time and time again, launching new products, leveraging all the retail strategies that you know so well that are completely missing from the MLM play.
Yeah.
Lastly, as we come into land, we're coming into land here.
Good.
Okay.
Holding my seat down.
Yeah, seat belt, the tray table folded away, seat belt tightened,
Yeah.
seat in the upright position.
Good.
In terms of working outside of South Africa, as you know, we kind of are working with companies in Europe and the US and that. Are you comfortable to work with companies outside of South Africa?
It's not a problem at all. So in my current consulting business, I work with many international clients. So I work specifically around the European regions. So I've got clients currently in Denmark, in Germany, in the Netherlands, one in the UK, and I've got another one in Austria that we're just acquiring. So absolutely no problem. I think this pandemic has taught us in a way that like you can work remotely. I think this is true for established and very professional people, absolutely, and established teams. And it has worked flawlessly so far. And absolutely no problems working with overseas clients.
Okay, so the people who are watching us today may or may not be Netready customers, and that's 100% fine. But they still might want to. They might not be working with us, but they might really want to have some time with you. So could you just tell me, how would they get hold of you? What is your telephone number? What is your email address? You know, you can give your physical address. You can give your trouser size, whatever you want to do to get the guys interested in talking to you. How do we get hold of you?
So the easiest is to go to my website. It's www.blackbear.co.za.
I hope it's black bear as in a bear, not
it's
as
in a
naked.
bear.
Okay,
it's in a bear.
good.
Yeah. So like I'll tell you the story behind that just now. Yeah. But it's www.blackbear.co.za. Or you can get in touch with me at Matt M-A-T-T dot my last name Schaal SCHAAL at blackbear.co.za. Very simple.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and we can take it from there. And I'm sure you'll link it in the comments.
It will be in the comments, but obviously we would love you to work with Matt and, you know, gain whatever insights you can from him. And if there's any comments or any questions of whatever nature, just stick them into the comments below. We'll certainly be reading them, and we'll definitely get back to you on them, and we'll pass any questions or comments that we get from you to Matt directly. Matt, I'd like to thank you so much for spending this time with us. It was really absolutely amazing to chat with you, and I'm looking forward to working with you, and I'm sure that our clients are going to get enormous value from working with you moving forward.
Now, thanks very much, Richard, for having me. I really enjoyed this time, and I wish you and your clients obviously all the best. And if I can help in that journey, I'd be more than happy to.
Excellent.
Cool.
Go on.